So, on my very first podcast here, I have a very special guest. She is going to break me in on podcasting. She is the author of Audrey's Heirs, which is available on Amazon. She has a lovely website at HayleyReeseChow.com. I'd like to introduce Hayley Chow. She is a United States Air Force vet, and she's also an All-American fencer 4 times. That's pretty interesting. So, the first thing I want to hear about is your mini rage hound.
Oh gosh, yes, I do have a mini rage hound. She's a little lazy. Actually, sometimes I wonder about her. She seems more cat than dog most of the time. But yeah, she wanders around our house. She's our little rescue, and she defends us from what we need to, from any evils out there. So we keep her around.
That's cool. That's cool. Real quick question. So, one of the things that I did in one of my books was I incorporated a pet that we had lost, and my oldest daughter, she thought that was just awesome. Have you ever done that? Like incorporated, our pet was Sparky, and so I named a hellhound Sparky just for fun.
Gotcha. I didn't name him as much. There's a rage hound in Audrey's Heirs. His name is Gus, and he plays a big part. He's almost like a service dog for the main character, Kaya. Yeah. And even though I've never had a dog named Gus or anything, but I did have a Sheltie when I was a kid who was just the best dog. And I think a lot of the interactions with her and Gus, I think, definitely stem from my relationship with that dog when I was a kid.
Oh, cool. That's kind of funny the way pets kind of work themselves into your life. And then all of a sudden when you're writing, I mean, all those experiences kind of come into your writing and everything else. The next question I have is, how long have you been an author?
I published Audrey's Heirs. I self-published Audrey's Heirs in March, so that was like my first book. And but I actually wrote it in 2012. So but I wrote it in 2012, and then I actually didn't think I would ever do anything with it. I just thought, I wrote a book, and that's great, and I'll move on with my life. And then in 2017, I started revising it and picking it up again, but I didn't really. And that's actually when I did my first NaNoWriMo and wrote my second book. So I guess I would say in 2017 is when I really started kind of being like, do I want to do something? Do I want to do more with this? So I guess it's been like 3 years now, which still seems like a long time. I feel like I just started.
I know the feeling. So you talk a little bit about, I just was reading your bio that you're a world traveler.
I do. I love to travel. I loved to travel before when it was, in a better time before.
Way back in 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
Before the COVID. So, when you travel that much, I know a lot of people that have gone, whether it was in the military or whether it was, just for vacationing or whatever. But does that have an impact on your writing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love to travel, but my mother is like an obsessive traveler. She has gone everywhere. She goes everywhere. And when we were kids, she took us everywhere, so that's kind of where it started. My dad was in the military, so we were kind of moving around anyway. And then she would take us more places. And then I got into the fencing circuit, and I traveled a ton with fencing. Saw lots of different places. And then now, even as an adult, we try to travel somewhere new, every year. But definitely, I mean, it's funny because Audrey's Heirs, I can definitely think of specific scenes, specifically that were inspired by when my mom and we took a road trip around Ireland for a couple of weeks when my friend was getting married there. And it's funny because sometimes people, especially my beta readers stuff, will even ask. They'll be like, is this is this based on a real thing? And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, when I was in when I was in New Zealand, actually one of my books is kind of some of the settings are definitely inspired by where when my husband and I went to New Zealand a couple years ago and did a couple weeks around there. And so it's, and of course all the experiences are sometimes a lot based in a little bit in truth too. So Absolutely. I love traveling and just the variety of different places you see, you know, how different even places, you know, even places on earth can be, you know, can definitely inspire how the range of possibilities in fantasy, I feel like. So it's been that is a huge part too.
Cool. So what's the setting for your book?
For Odril's Heirs,
Yeah.
Odril's Heirs takes place in a world called Okaria, and it is a, you know, kind of a classic fantasy with it's very mountainous and green, and it has a lot of forests kind of setting. So I would say almost like a classical place, and with creatures that you've never, you know, that might seem familiar to you, but also you've never heard of. So new, it all seems new and familiar is what is the vibe that I was kind of going for. And then of course, you know, there are the undead that are all over the place. So that kind of adds its own own charm.
Oh, sure. That's the necromancer, correct?
Right.
Oh, those necromancers are horrible. Sorry, coffee break. So let's jump a little bit to the fencing.
Sure.
So you were a 4-time All-American fencer.
I was.
And that's where you got to travel doing that, plus the military. I mean, you've been all over the place, which is very interesting. So one of the things that I noticed when I talk to other authors, and they talk about, like, if they're in the military, like if they went over to Iraq or something like that, and you know they're in firefights, they use that type of stuff to actually influence. Yeah, it influences their writing. I mean, everything that you experience, everything that you've seen and done or have done experiences it. So does the fencing help you, like with sword fights and stuff like that? I mean, does that give you a better you know, I mean, insight to it, and does that affect your writing at all?
I think so. I mean, fencing is definitely a sport. You know, it's not like a life or death situation or anything.
Yeah.
But I do have, I feel like, a pretty good knowledge of you know, strategy and you know what you're thinking about when you're in a I think any type of martial art, it really helps with fight scenes and stuff, because you're thinking about the main character is thinking about, you know, the distance and, you know, the strength of it, how it feels, and, you know, and really the intensity of it, and how your train of thought is thinking as you're going through this, you know, more than you know, I'm going to parry and feint and, you know, go low and then go high, and I'm going to set up this trap. You know, that's not, I feel like that's not as translatable, just because like I said, it's a sport versus, you know, I'm 100% sure with real blades it would probably go down different, but the same thought process is there, you know, of where your mind is when you're kind of in that zone, and the different principles of combat, of a martial art type combat or a sword play type combat, I think are definitely helpful. And it's funny because when I first wrote Odril's Heirs, one of my other fencing friends wrote it, and he was like, yep, I can definitely tell a fencer wrote this. You know, which was amusing. I was like, well, you know, it's gonna bleed in there.
Well, it's that level of, I mean, I don't know. When I write my fight scenes, it usually has to do with, you know, there's a punch here, there's this or that or what. I mean, whatever. And usually it's, I was involved in MMA for a while, and you know, different martial arts, jujitsu and wrestling, and you know, I mean, just anything I could do to build up, you know, just with MMA. And I know that when I write my fight scenes, usually it's hand to hand. You know, it's not really, you know, there's a little bit of sword play in there, but you know, that's it. But you know, I made one mistake in a book, which was really funny, and you being in the military, you'd probably know this. It wasn't really a mistake, but my editor had me put it in, just because I was trying to fumble around with a grenade. You know, the old movie cliche where you're going to take the grenade, rip the pin out, you know, and in real life you'd rip out all your teeth. But
right.
You know, in a book or a movie, it looks really cool, and it's like, no, you need to do this with your teeth, and it's like, really? Okay. You know, I've had one person that noticed, and I had one friend that noticed, and it was like, dude, when's his dentures coming in? That's chapter 10. You know,
Yeah, it
kind
is
of thing.
funny kind of balancing that book or movie kind of almost magic, I guess, with our real life experiences slash knowledge.
Yeah, well, that was my first book, and I was thinking, okay, I have to make this somewhat realistic, but as far as the imagination goes, I mean, this has to be kind of plausible. Okay, I get it. And my editor, yeah, she was. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't right. I haven't changed it, but I'm not. I'm probably not going to do that again. But
It's funny because if I read that, I think I wouldn't think anything of it, because you just see it. You see it so often in movies. It's almost like, yeah, I get, sure, man.
oh, sure. You see Bruce, any of those guys are, all right, I got my 2 grenade. All right, now I'm going to, okay, yeah. No.
Bruce Willis can do it. I've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. In a duct in a big building, whatever.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy. So what else do you want to, what else do you do?
What
Anything
else
fun?
do
I
I
mean,
do?
you're a marathon runner. Holy cow.
Yeah, I definitely got into that for a while. That's another thing. I do that more low key now, but there was a time right when I got out of college and I wasn't fencing anymore. That I was like, oh, well, what do I do now? And then I was like, oh, I guess I'll just run. And I just had a lot of time on my hands, so I ran a long way. But yeah, so I got into marathoning and ultra marathoning. I still do running. I still do. I really like half marathons, and I'd like to get back into triathlons one day. But writing, takes a lot of time, man.
It does. It does.
So
So
it is hard to balance.
do you make that part of your writing process? I mean, as far as, go out for a run, then come back and write, or do you use any of that type of stuff for, getting over writer's block, or, or when you have to come up with a really good idea because you wrote yourself into a corner, which
Right.
never happens to anybody else, I'm sure.
I feel like running is actually probably more of my parenting process.
Oh, really?
I'm like, okay, I can't handle this anymore. We're all getting in the stroller and we're going for a run.
We're going for a
So,
run.
so that's actually like that's part of our usual day is when I take my kids for a stroller run. But yeah, it's I actually say, when I run, I actually listen to audiobooks when I'm not with my children. That's how I sneak in time to read, because like I said, writing can be very, I'm sure, as you know, and every other writer knows, it's super consuming. It takes up all the minutes of your day and all your time and all your thoughts. But it's funny, as much as I love writing, I think I love reading more. And so I really, fitting in time for audiobooks and reading is definitely super important to me too. So running is perfect time for audiobooks. I love audiobooks.
So how old are your kids?
I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
4-year-old and 2-year-old. That doesn't leave a lot of time for writing.
They keep me pretty busy.
Yeah. So
they do go to bed.
They do go to bed. So you're doing the 8:00 at night after everything's settled down, writing for a couple hours, and then.
Exactly. And you even got the time right. It's like, well, they usually go to bed around 7:30. So I get about 2 hours between 7:30 and 9:30. So yeah. that's kind of how we roll over here.
So I've got 2 young children too. And what I find is that it's weird, but my writing time is like 9:00 till about midnight, and I can't seem to write before that, so if they go to bed at 8 or 7:30, or, it's an early night and everybody goes to bed, I sit here and I'm like, okay, I can't seem to do anything till like 9:00 at night. And then of course I'm up too late at night doing, whatever it is, the writing and the marketing and, everything else that comes with being an indie author. I mean, holy cow. It's one thing I didn't realize when I was getting into it, is that you are everything. You are the marketing. You are the, you can hire a publicist, maybe. You are looking at your Amazon ads, you're looking at your Facebook page, you're trying to, post on social media while you're writing and doing this and doing that. And, you know, that 3 hours at night or that 2 hours in the morning or whatever you end up getting is just it's tough to fit it all in.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Especially, oh gosh, the social media thing too is tough, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it is part of the marketing, obviously, and it's really nice to fit in the community and stuff. That's also something that I found is like so easy to unbalance. You know what I mean? It can just bleed into everything, and before you know it, you're like, wait a minute, I was supposed to write tonight, and I feel like I've been on my Twitter feed, like, you know, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I try and get on my Instagram. I actually had to back off of my Instagram a little bit because it was taking up too much time. And I mean, you see my page, all I do is, you know, it's memes and, you know, smart assy comments and
they are great memes
yeah,
either way.
well, you know, yeah, it's, you know, I just try and entertain people a little bit. And that's kind of the way, you know, I write too, is just kind of sarcastically, you know, and that type of thing. And what I found was I was doing way more on social media and way less writing. And it's like, no, that's not what I want to do. You know, there's a
Mhm.
balance.
Oh man, I'm totally there. I had to do the same thing. I was trying to post for a time there. I was trying to post every day, like something creative to Instagram and Twitter, and I was like, okay, I could use this creative energy on my social media, or I could put it towards, you know, my actual works in progress, the books that I'm trying to write. And one of these things is bringing me more joy.
Right. At one point in time, I was writing my own memes.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
fun.
and it was kind of fun, and they're getting, you know, they're getting pretty. I mean, they're not bad, you know. And what I found was I was using some of my best lines I could be using in my books in memes and putting them out for, you know, like, hey, look at this, you know. And I had to quit. I'll just let everybody else do it, and I'll just keep those for myself and put them in my books.
Right, right. And they're like, oh, but Jeff, I saw this in a meme. Like, it was my meme.
Yeah, it was mine. That was a really great line. And I copyright now, whatever. Oh, so you have the short story coming out on the 16th.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about that. So Saving Sloane is coming out. It's being published by Rogue Blade Entertainment. They have a omnibus coming out. It's called As You Wish, and it's it's fun. You know what I mean? It's I think they say it's like the best parts of heroic exploits or something like that. But
Cool.
it was a short story that I wrote. I wrote a couple short stories shortly after my youngest was born because I didn't have enough focus as a new mom for anything longer than a short story. But I was like, I can write a short story. You know, I can keep a short story in my head, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing longer than that. So I wrote a couple, and that was actually my first one that I got actually paid to for someone else to publish, which was really cool. That was a really exciting feeling. But more than that, it's a story that it's fun, you know, and it's funny. And I wrote it, and I found the call that they were doing was it was called Somebody Kill the Prince, and they were saying it's basically, you know, just they were looking for fun, kind of family friendly fantasy stories. So Saving Sloane is about a kind of would-be knight who goes to save a princess who's in a tower, you know, defended by a dragon, and she just wants to be left alone.
She does not want to be saved.
No, she
No.
is neither in need of saving nor wants to be saved. And and it's just kind of about their small little short adventure. So, but it's fun, and I'm really excited for people to read it and see what they think.
Cool. So do you do like the flash fiction and the short story type stuff? I mean, do you so you wrote this short story, but I assume that you've written other ones too?
I have. I've written three or four that are kind of scattered out on the internet. I really like short stories, and um, I've done some flash too. And it just depends on where I am with my other works in progress in their lifespan, because like you said, there's so many parts of being an indie author, right? There's revision, and there's editing, and there's marketing, and there and publishing and formatting and all that stuff. So you don't get to write all the time, you know what I mean? You have some nights all I do is like, okay, I have to edit this or I have to format this and I don't get any words out, so sometimes the flash and the short stories are really good to break that up. Where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to format, but then I'm going to, work on this short story, which isn't going to take up my whole next year, unlike when you start a novel and you're like, okay, this is, am I really going to do this? Because this is going to like consume my life for the next, for the next however many months. So I really like short stories. And it's really good to go from concepts to, release pretty quickly. I can write a short story in a couple days, and then get it out in a couple weeks. So I haven't done that recently since I've had 3 novels I've been working on, which have been like just consuming me. But yeah, I really like the short stories. And the Flash is fun too. I got into Flash because once again, when I was a new mom, I just couldn't couldn't do all that much. So I got into like 100-word stories. They're called Drabbles, and there's a couple places that specialize in 100-word story prompts, and those are pretty cool too.
So, you write short stories. You got 3 novels going on. You got 2 kids. You got a husband. You got a rage hound. You've got all this stuff going on. Do you work a day? I mean, do you work during the day too?
I do. I'm a full-time engineer. Yeah.
Full-time engineer. How do you balance all this? I mean, that's a lot. Not well. Isn't that what we all say though? I mean, I'm on, you always feel like you're underwater. Nothing ever, you've got a task list that's 100 items that you need to get done. And it's like, okay, I got 5 of them done this week. Oh my gosh. And then you added, 50 more things that need to get done or whatever. I keep a journal for just ideas that I have while I'm doing things other than writing. And I look back at it, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to change this chapter. I have to do this. I have to do that. And then all of a sudden a kid comes up and says, oh my gosh, my knee got banged, or whatever. Usually it's, no, I want a cookie. I'm writing. I want a cookie now. Okay. And then you get up and, I mean, how do you balance all this?
Oh gosh. Well, yeah, I really can't write while the kids are awake unless my husband and I will sometimes take him in shifts. Like I'll be like, all right, I got this 3 hours, and you get the next 3 hours that he can, do whatever he wants to do, and I can do whatever I want to do. That's on the weekends, right? On the weekends we can sometimes trade off like that, but otherwise they gotta be asleep. we have nap time at noon to 2, and we have bedtime at 7:30. So those are really the best times. But other than that, I just try to be really focused when I'm doing what I'm doing, whatever it is. At work, it's about work. When I'm with my kids, it is about the kids. And when it's writing time, or and really, it's like, this is it too, which is like, sometimes I feel it's easy to feel guilty for not writing. And I feel like a lot of people, you see that a lot, where people are like, I should be writing right now. I should be writing right now. And it almost becomes like this like, this obsession, like, and that's hard too. Like I try to, like, I am an indie author, but I do have these other things. I'm not just an indie author, I am a mom and an engineer and stuff like that. So I try not to, I try to enjoy it, right? I try to be really easy. I try to be easy on myself. So first of all, I'm a huge program manager. Like I have to-do lists every day, and I have timelines for myself. I break big things into smaller pieces, so it's like, okay, this day I'm going to edit chapters 1 through 3. And I have calendars like all of the whatever, think about what I'm going to do for the next 6 months. But if I don't meet those self-imposed lines in the sand, that's okay. I try to be easy with myself. And I haven't had to deal with writer's block really. But because for me, writer's block is really just a sense that I need to take a break. If I'm having writer's block, I need to just take a step back and breathe and remember how to enjoy writing. So that's kind of how I feel about that. But yeah, balance for me is really just trying to be in the moment, with whatever I'm doing, and then trying to be easy on myself.
The actually having a writer's block, I don't think I've ever had that. Not being able to write because of time that, or, in that self-imposed, oh my God, I should be writing. I mean, how many times have you looked at somebody's social media and they're like, I should be writing, and they're posting
All the
like
time.
50,000 things on Facebook, and they're commenting on every other, there's, 1,000 groups you could be belonging to, and you see them, I should be writing, and they're posting it in every other group. It's like, why aren't you writing? Okay, whatever, but that's fine. That may be the way that they unblock themselves or whatever. My thing is always, when I get stuck, and it's, I try and write something, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I've just either created a huge plot hole, or there's no way out of this. How do I do this? Oh my gosh. There's no plausible way of getting out of the situation without him dying. So how do I not kill off my main character? Because, it's only chapter 5, and he needs to be there for chapter, 42, that type of stuff that usually messes me up a little bit. So then I have to walk away and try and figure out, okay, I need to rewrite this chapter. I need to do this or whatever. I'm not very good at just skipping it and fixing it later. I'm kind of like, okay, this has to be fixed now, because whatever I do now is going to affect chapters 17, 42, 60, it's like, oh, gee, but.
Oh, I'm the same way. Like, I've heard that people write out of order, and I cannot. Like,
Yeah.
I have to go just along the story with everybody else.
I find myself every now and then, the old Home Alone movie. Oh my God, what'd I do? I've woken myself up at 3 a.m. in the morning, going, oh no, and then had to get up and fix something real quick, and it's like, oh, the next day you're dragging, and that's just horrible. But
Oh man, that sounds like a classic creative mindset right there.
something like that, or obsessive compulsive, or just mentally deranged. One of the two, or one of the six. But
Thin line. It's a thin line.
it's a thin line. It really is. Really is. So how do you how do you incorporate your humor into this? I mean, obviously you've got a really cool personality and everything, but when you're incorporating humor, but also you're writing YA, young adult. I write NC-17/R. Don't let your kids read my stuff until they probably had their second year in college. Which I find it's easier to, and it's probably a cheap prop, because then I can curse a little bit more. I can do this. I can make things a little more real. And then my sarcasm is not, it doesn't go over too many people's heads. But writing YA, that's tough. How do you incorporate that wholesome sense of humor you must have?
It's funny. I definitely have to tone it down sometimes. Actually, I'm just finishing up one of my other works in progress. It's called Codename Cinderella, and so the cussing is hard. So because I am a natural cusser. I think it brings a lot of flavor to conversation, and I think it's maybe it's just me coming from a military background. I feel like you see it a lot, and kids do it a lot too, but
Yep.
it is. But you're like, am I going to do this like real kids speak, or am I going to make this, or am I going to make this more family friendly? And actually, it's funny. And I talk to my critique partners, and my husband will have this a lot. I'll be like, okay, I need, oh gosh, what was it? Like, I'll write something, I'll write like, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of one that's like, I had this kid, and I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to say, like, this is going to be a clusterfuck, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, but he can't say that. It was like, right? He has to say. I was like, what's? And so I was turning to my husband. I was like, what's the PG-13 version of clusterfuck? And and I say like stuff like that all the time.
Mhm.
It's like, and it's funny. I need a dictionary that changes these fantastic,
That's a great idea. Let's.
yeah, these I need that have PG-13s of these R phrases, because there's so many, but so sometimes I'll write it like that. And then I'll have to go back through and be like, Okay, we need to tone this down just a little bit.
Do you ever watch that show? I think it was The Good Place.
Yeah.
Holy fork! Why'd they just say
Holy forking
fork?
shirt, man.
That would be a way to do it. I thought that was actually brilliant writing at that point. You can't curse here. Holy fork! You're kidding. Shirt.
And it's actually pretty easy in fantasy, right? Because they can have their own phrases and stuff, that
Right.
that mean to them. So that's pretty easy. Like in Odril's Heirs, I think they say like skies above and like earth below, and sometimes like Odril's teeth, instead of anything else. So they have their own kind of language in that. And I have another one too with actually I just one of my work in progress is actually a middle grade, which is actually even more, right? Is even more like really toned down. And but once again, they're kind of in a fantasy world, and actually they're almost like too stressed out to even worry. Like I don't know, I guess I feel sometimes in my head like I guess I read, right? I read a lot of young adult and middle grade. So sometimes it's just easy for me to get into that groove of just more wholesome, I guess, focusing more on, kids, what kids are interested in, because kids have a different mindset about the things that are important to them, versus the things that are important to older adults. But yeah, or in the short story Saving Sloane, the princess. Okay, so yeah, the princess is one of those people I definitely had to reach into the corners of my mind for PG-13 insults, because she is rude. She is
And why wouldn't she be?
not pleased. She's definitely a rude warrior princess. So I definitely had to dive into another thing that helps is old insults. You know what I mean? Like things that are that would have been horrible insults in like the 1800s or 1700s that aren't as bad now. You can kind of get away with that. Like I think she calls him like someone a milksop at some point, or like, and she comes up with some more creative things. I think she calls someone a piss biscuit,
Piss biscuit, that's good.
Right. Yeah. So young adult, you just gotta be you gotta be kind of a little more creative with smoothing those things over.
Well, and it's fun when you write that type of stuff because you're writing it and I assume that the kids that are reading your book are like, oh my God, she said piss biscuit. That's great. And they'll use it on the playground and all those fun places and whatever. And then you get that one person who is, better than the rest of us and has never used a curse word in her life, that writes that 1-star review saying, I just wish that literature today was, more refined like it used to be back in, I don't know, 1600 when I was first alive. It's like, whatever. Or my favorite 1-star review is, oh my God, you need an editor. Okay, you're the first one to say that, and it's been through 3 editors. Bite me, type stuff. But that type, you always get that one person that looks at that and goes, oh, I'm so offended. And I always imagine that one person that talks about the cursing or the phrases to actually, sit down and I'm gonna fucking write a 1-star review on this bitch. It's like, yeah, that's probably what they're saying while they write, I cannot believe how offended I am about your language, type stuff. But
right, yeah, I think one of the things I try to do, and I'm not very good at, I need to be better, is like trying to say exactly what it is. You know what I mean? It's like, because I have had some people who have asked me about Odril's Heirs, what age is it appropriate for? And it's so hard, right? Because when I was a kid, I love to read, and I was a very advanced reader, so I would, at 12, I could read whatever, I could read, and you would find, as a stumbling through the library, you would find whatever, cuss words, of course, didn't offend me at all, even at that age, but, more explicit things, and so I try to be very open about, what you know, the violence, you know, the violence. And it's interesting because people seem to have very different opinions about the age just difference. You know, some people be like, oh yeah, I can totally see this being like for, you know, the 12 and up crowd, and some people are like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe for like, you know, for a high school crowd. And you know, so I really have a hard time pinpointing the age, because it's, you know, also just depends on the kid, you know, the
Right.
maturity of the kid too. So I really just try to be like, you know, Odell's Airs has violence. You know, it doesn't have, it has maybe, I think it has one instance, I even say it has one instance where they say damn, pretty sure. And you know, and the other than that, it's just violent, you know.
Mhm.
And so if you can handle violence, you'll probably be there. And you know, as long as people kind of have that warning, you know, I really haven't had too many people be like, oh my gosh, people died. It's
Right.
like, yes, they did.
You know, it's funny the way, as far as society goes, that we handle this type of stuff, because I think we're snootier about it now than I mean, I ever remember it being. When I was a kid, you know, there was some violence on TV, but it wasn't as bad as it is now, you know, on TV. You know, I mean, there was an implied violence, you know. And I know some writers that kind of, you know, they imply the violence versus actually graphically putting it out, and saying, you know, and with my slice of my sword, you know, I cut his throat and there's blood all over the place and everything else. They just kind of, yeah, I cut him. Okay. You know, that, I mean, you know, however they want to do it. But the funny thing that I think of when I go back and I look at historical records, or, you know, I love history, and you look at the types of things that kids were exposed to, you know, even go back 100 years or 150 years, and it was way worse than anything you probably put in a book, or, you know, put on screen nowadays, you know, to where everybody's like trying to shelter their kids from, you know, certain things. When I was a kid, you know, when we learned what the you know, fuck meant, it's like, holy cow, we're running all over the gym going fuck 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 fuck, fuck, you know. And of course, the teacher, you know, where did you hear that word? Dad, the gas
Yeah,
station,
right.
you know, whatever. You know, nowadays they have, you know, Call of Duty, and they've got all these different games. I'm not a gamer, but, you know, whatever. You know, these first person shooter games and stuff like that. That, you know, it's okay to do that, but if you write, you know, I fucking killed somebody in a book, oh my god, you know, they lose their mind. They just go bird shit on it, and it's just like, okay, whatever. You know, I think we have some double standards as far as that goes. But I'm really for, like, you know, what you're doing when you write that fantasy. You know, you have to put the expression in there. You have to put, you know, the violence in there. Otherwise, it's not realistic. I mean, and it has to be some. There has to be a level of authenticity to your writing. Otherwise, it's not a good story. You know, if you hide that stuff, and isn't that, I mean, you're, it's not, you know, I mean, you're not trying to teach life lessons, but you want it to be an authentic, realistic story. Otherwise, you can't build that world. You know, there's violence in everything. I don't know how you feel about it, but, you know,
Right.
that's kind of the way I look at it.
Absolutely. And you know, at a certain level, like, you know, if they, you know, if that's what's advertised as, that's what people are looking for. You know what I mean? Like personally, you know, I mean, I'm totally all about reading about violence. You know what I mean? Like violence, yes. Like
Got him. Yes.
like if someone, you know, exactly, you know what I mean? Because it's funny because in Odrill's airs, I have had a couple people who have been surprised that people died and stayed dead. They did not come back. They died, you know, and they were like,
Mhm.
oh, you know, I was kind of surprised that happened. I'm like, it's, you know, it's like there's a war going on. people people are going to die, you know. It's a thing, you know, or you know, people get hurt, or you know, I think some other people have commented on the way that I make everything hard, you know what I mean. Everything is difficult, you know what I mean. Even though they're using magic, it's, you know, they're sweating and they're tired and they're dirty and they're, you know, people are dying, and you know, it's, you know, stuff like that. And you know, right, because even though it's a fantasy, you're trying to bring in this realism that people can connect to, you know, or imagine. So definitely, I definitely agree with that. You know, you try to make it as real as you can, you know, and just tell people what it is, you know.
Yep. Yep. I think it's really funny when writers put in their, the sweat and the grime and, all the things that you collect while you're on your journey, and then somebody goes, God, you stink. Go take a bath. Good God, man. Brush your teeth once, will you? That type of stuff. I mean, I get such a kick out of that, but it makes it real.
Yeah. There are, when you're trying to save the world from necromancers and the undead, that the baths and the brushing the teeth, they kind of come in
second or third. Yeah. There's always something in peril that needs to be fixed first.
Right.
Oh, well, we've been going for about 45 minutes. It looks like, or 40 minutes. I'm not sure, but, anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, I don't really have anything specifically in mind. What do you think? How do you think it's going?
I think it's going actually pretty good, actually. Cool. It's been a nice conversation. How do you feel about it?
I feel good. I feel like it's gone well.
Okay, cool. Cool. So, as we end up, and of course, we'll leave that in because that's all embarrassing. No, just kidding. Oh my God, how am I doing? Such a freak about this. Anyway, you are available on your book. Adriel's Heirs is on Amazon.
Yes.
Okay, and I assume that your short stories are all on Amazon also. And you've got
my short stories are actually if you go to my website, a lot of them are free online. They're just in different publications, different free sites. So I have links to them all on my website. And then the newest one, Saving Sloan and As You Wish, is also on Amazon.
Cool. Okay. Anything else that you want to promote here or do? I know you're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. No, are you on Facebook?
I am not on Facebook.
What?
Oh my gosh. I know.
What?
I tried that for a little while and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I was like, just stick with Twitter and Instagram. I'm sure it's a faux pas, but
I don't know if it is or not because everybody I talk to, I mean, I had to pick two. I'm not really on Twitter at all. But I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and there's a lot of authors I talk to that they pick two that they're good at. And then there's those authors that are on everything, they're on Pinterest, they're on Snapchat, they're on, it's like, how do you find time to do anything else?
Right. Yeah. I can't handle all that.
Yeah. My favorite thing is these conferences that people go to. And they come up with, here's a really great idea that worked for somebody else, and it's, the last one I heard was Pinterest, and oh my God, I got thousands of book sales off of that. How do you know? Number one. Number two, that guy's been an author for like 20 years and everything that he does, I mean, he has a following. And he's saying, I just got on Pinterest and I sold thousands of books. It probably doesn't mean that much to him because he's got 50, 60 books out there in the first place. And the other thing is that you're drawing your focus away from stuff that's actually working to go try this new thing. And I've always kind of harnessed myself into, I'll do Facebook, I'll do Instagram because I'm not too bad at that type of stuff. Everything else, Pinterest, I can't stand Pinterest in the first place. So I don't know why I do that. And Twitter, I haven't been able to figure out how to actually get a hook in there. So I did it for about 2 weeks and then I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But well, there's so much going on in Twitter. I mean, between, the social stuff, the COVID stuff and the politics and.
Dude, you should see my muted word list. I have my muted word list is extensive.
The other thing that I love about social media is, have you voted yet? Have you registered to vote? Are you registered? I'm getting a little tired of that. I wish I could mute that, but
We have like 3 weeks, like 3
only
weeks,
3 weeks, and then this craziness will be over.
Oh, thank goodness, man. But yeah, actually that's a part of my muted word list. I was like, I am only here for writing. Everything
Yeah.
else that has to do with that doesn't have to do with writing, goodbye.
Right. That's kind of the way I do it too. So I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. You know what? It has been really nice getting to know you, and I've really enjoyed our conversation, Hayley.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
If you ever want to come back on, just let me know, and we'll do this thing again. But
Cool.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and stop the recording.
All right.
How do we do that?